So basically, we were at a crossroads in our career path where some unforeseen health issues arose, putting Dan's pilot license in jeopardy. And it seemed that there were basically just two choices that we had. Either Dan had to go back to full-time swinging the hammers and doing the construction thing, remodeling houses, which he really hoped he wouldn't ever have to do for a living again. Or there was another option of a long-term job commitment that would keep him away from home, which is what we were trying to get away from. But it was a secure income. And I realized at that moment I preferred security. And that made me do some stepping back and looking at my own life and where is my security. So we didn't want Dan to keep having to travel, so we were both very motivated to find another option. And that's basically what brought us to this point where we started thinking about kind of a dream that we had for just a casual dream, I guess you could call it, for many years, of doing something with coffee, either a coffee trailer or something like that. And so we began doing some research while we could. This was during COVID, so we had, a little bit more time to do research on the internet and looking for locations. And kind of in that time frame, we stumbled across a property that seemed like maybe a good option. It seemed kind of crazy at the time because it had quite a few obstacles that we were going to have to overcome. Things like it was too high of an asking price, we felt like. It had a floodplain issue, which was encumbering the property. These things, potentially costing thousands of dollars down the road. So, long story short, we nervously and excitedly kind of decided, okay, let's make an offer on that building and just see if we can get it for X amount of dollars. We feel like we could move forward with it. And interestingly enough, it was an old speed lube building. So I don't know if you have those where you live, whatever country you live in, but I don't know in UK if they have a quick change oil lube type scenario, but that's basically what it was, with the pits underneath, and you drive your car across it and the little man goes underneath and changes your oil, puts new oil in. So, we fell in love with the building. We were, looking through these big, beautiful glass overhead doors and seeing all the oil equipment inside and getting excited and overwhelmed all at the same time, I guess you could say, probably. So we were able to purchase the building for the price that we determined that is what we could afford to go with it, with all the construction and remodeling and renovation it would take to convert it from an oil building to a coffee shop. So we bought the building in April of 21, and we opened the doors on September 3rd of that same year. So a lot happened in 5 months' time. And from there, that's where we begin this journey that we can look back on now and see just how many things God, we believe, has his hand in making it come to be what it is today. Of course, we had to put in our part of the effort, and we had many friends that helped us. We had some connections from Dan's days in aviation, where he had a friend that had started a coffee roasting business. And so that became a key component in helping us know what kind of equipment to buy and how to set up a coffee shop and get the precise roast of coffee that we wanted. And so many friends that just helped us come alongside us and offering help in different ways, from jackhammering concrete to bringing us meals or helping us clean the oil pits out and painting and scrubbing and all the things. It truly would not have happened without that community of friends that have then some even still worked in the coffee shop as baristas and that kind of thing for a while, till we could get our team built and know exactly how many people we would even need to run the place, because we had no idea what kind of business we would have. And all this, of course, being a huge leap of faith, but it really has been a much bigger thing than Dan and I just opening a coffee shop. So there you go.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Overtones podcast. I'm Christy, I'm here with my co-host LaRae.
Hello there. If you're new to the podcast, our goal is to investigate and celebrate the diverse unity of the Christian church around the world. We speak to academics, church workers, and lay people from across the global church in order to highlight lesser heard voices and grow in our love for brothers and sisters around the world.
Today, we're delighted to have with us on the podcast Dan and Carma Miller, who are here to help us think about a Christian approach to owning and running a small business.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello, Christy and LaRae.
Welcome.
It's great to have you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Thank you so much for this wonderful story that you told us in the beginning. Could you just tell us a little bit more about how you come to run an independent coffee shop in Salem, Illinois?
So kind of going off of what Karma mentioned in the opening story there, I had been on a 15-year career path as a helicopter pilot, working 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off. So minimum 6 months out of the year, I was living out of a suitcase away from home. So we had been thinking for quite a while of how to transition me to a job closer to home. But we hadn't really found a solution yet. There's been some opportunities, but nothing really worked out. Then I started having some health issues that we couldn't really explain. Eventually, it kind of came to a head where I just had to make the decision out of safety and abundance of caution to just stop flying until we figured some things out. Coincidentally, we didn't really find anything concrete as far as everything seemed to be health-wise, physically seemed to be fine. But there were some options that came up with my employer at the time to move into a different position, but it would have not solved the issue of being able to be at home and have a steady at-home time, and it would have required a lengthy long-term commitment, and so that didn't work. So we decided to we needed a career change, needed to find something, and we just stepped out, trusting God that He would show us the path forward. Of course, we didn't expect envelopes of money to come falling down out of the sky while I'm sitting there looking for work or something to do. So I just literally the day that I quit flying, I came home, got home midday, and by the afternoon, I was out on a job, construction job, tearing off a back porch on a house to rebuild. And I'm very thankful that day I'll probably never forget that day because it was marked so deeply. I was by myself working, took a little break there, and I'm standing looking at my tools sitting there. I happened to have my dad's work trailer with me at the time, and this flood of memories came over me of my upbringing. My dad was a general contractor, and so that's what I grew up doing. My earliest memories, with operating equipment, swinging a hammer, or whatever, and having those skills, that skill set to be able to jump right back into when I needed to. At the time, I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I wanted to do anything else but, do construction work. But God was preparing, and I just had this flood of memories and appreciation to God, to my dad, to my mom, to my family, my raising, my upbringing, of what was in my tool bag that I could reach back and grab and use in that moment. During that time, Karma continued to work for Kurt, LaRae's dad, there at the Estate Planning Center. And somewhere along that process, we started thinking about, owning a coffee shop or a trailer or doing something with coffee. That had been a long-term. So Karma and her girlfriends and just, someday it would be so fun to, have a coffee shop, not knowing the ramifications of any of that. So that's sort of the backstory on how that happened. That whole transition from career to kind of stepping out and actually taking ownership of the property and bringing the coffee shop to fruition was just like, sometimes you look back and you think, oh, wow, I can see how God worked now. But there were times during this transition that it was so clear that you could, in the moment, be like, God is working. Mm-hmm. His hand is in this in some way. That we just felt such a peace. There were a lot of unknowns, but we just tried to think of holding it loosely and let God just work and use us and however He saw fit. And it was just so neat in the moment to be able to see some of that and realizing that, wow, God is working right here, right now. We can sense that.
And maybe on the other side of that, God took us at our word that we wanted Dan to be home. And we didn't know what that meant, but that ended up meaning trusting Him and not knowing exactly what the next step maybe was going to look like. And a lot of hard work to make it happen. So it's not just like a easy God fix this for us kind of thing. And it took a lot of effort, but yet it was so worth it. In the end, we've never looked back.
Did you ever experience fear along the way? You said when you're facing the unknown, sometimes, yes, we want to trust God. But then have you ever felt like, this is just too scary? And what if we never really found anything that will help us make a living? And if there are moments like this, how did you kind of cope with that?
Definitely, the security of Dan's income and his job that we knew was secure and all that was very much something that I had come to rely on. So it's kind of that same thing. God was taking us at our word. Do you really trust me? And is this really what you want? Because may not look exactly like you think it's going to look. But there's the temptation to fear. I probably did at times question, oh boys, are we doing this? Is this the right thing? But it's always comes back to that choice of, okay, God, I'm going to trust you with this. And not looking too far in the future, but just do the next thing that you see that God is showing you to do right now. We've said several times, if we knew all that was going to transpire in the last 3 years or even the first year, we probably wouldn't have done it. But that's the beauty of living by faith and trusting one step at a time. And that's all we need to know, because we will easily be overwhelmed if we know too far down the road.
Yes.
And I tend to be a fair bit different with Carma. And I think there was probably, I don't recall feeling sense of fear necessarily, but I tend to be more optimistic. Oh, it's going to work. We can figure it out. Let's try this, and let's kind of go for it. And, we've all seen the videos of the kids up on a ledge and parent holds their hand out and the kid just bails off, I would be more quick to just bail off. And maybe whether or not I've truly considered all of the things I should consider before doing that, that would be my natural bent towards that. But I think there was a bit of maybe not fear. I think the unknown of can we figure this out and actually make a living and be secure? Because having come from being the breadwinner, having a stable job, a career, and then going from that where there was a framework within which I could operate and I knew what the result was going to be, to we have to build this thing. And we also kind of joke that we were, I think we continually are, we're building the airplane while we're flying it. And so we're just having to figure it out. And that is a much different mindset going from what I had been in the career. And so maybe a little bit of, am I up to it? Am I adequate? Do I have the brain power to figure this out? But God's been faithful, and we've grown together. I mean, we went from being away from each other actually more than 6 months out of the year to being with each other every day, all day. And it is wonderful. It is wonderful. And it's been just, I mean, yes, we have disagreements, we have misunderstandings, we got things we got to work through. And I'm sorry. LaRae is your dad, your grandpa actually is famous for saying, I stand corrected and move
Yes.
on in Christ likeness.
Along that same line, because we tend to be at such different ends of the spectrum in our personality and our drive or lack thereof or whatever, when we can work together and use both of our strengths and not fight against each other, but use them together as a team, we do very well together. And I think it took us a little bit to get adjusted to work together. So that has become something I think we've grown tremendously at.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know a lot of couples who also run a business together, and that has to be a great joy, but also a very different experience than doing other parts of life together. The shop is called the 610 Coffee Company. Could you tell our listeners how you settled on that name, what it refers to?
Well, that was honestly, it was quite a whirlwind, because in 5 months we had to put this whole thing together. So
Right.
we considered a lot of options. I remember having a sketch pad with all different names and different looking logos and, we're getting ideas from different people. And it honestly came one day when I was reading in the Bible in Galatians, and we were just struggling with what this name should be. And this verse 10 popped up, and it just hit me like a lightning bolt. This is the two-prong of our mission. What our heart is about this business. Do good to everyone which is what we think is serving great coffee. It was a need, something that was lacking in the marketplace.
Yes.
And especially then the second part of that, to the household of faith. So every chance we can, try to, from our profits, give to charitable causes locally and abroad, wherever that may lead. So it's kind of fun to think about. From time to time, you hear people say, oh, let's go to 610, or you may be out in the community or whatever, and it's like, they don't probably even know that they're talking about a Bible verse.
Right.
We're not overt with that. If people ask what 610 means, we will tell them. We love to share that with them, and we have it on a plaque in the drive-through so we can point to that. But some people think it's the hours that we're open, or we get different things.
Sure.
Or they mess it up. Instead of 610, they'll call it 618 Coffee Company, which is our phone area code.
Oh, of course.
I see.
And I just might add here, that second part of the mission, in the beginning, we really had the idea, from our profits, we're going to give to, charitable causes, big money and all these things. And as we've gone along, we think that's a part of our mission still, but we also have realized that, especially to the household of faith, is the culture that we are creating inside the coffee shop with our team. That is becoming what we feel like is priority, that we foster a Christ-like atmosphere, because then that is what will organically reach out through that drive-through, not only serving coffee, but it will serve it in a Christ-like manner and show Christ to people. So we've really come around to a little bit different angle on it as we've gone along. And it's kind of neat because coffee really breaks down barriers in just such a unique way. People want it, so they're there. Many people come every day, so you start to develop this relationship with them. You only have 2 or 3 minutes, but it's amazing how people want to share because they sense that Christ-like spirit. I don't know if they even know what it is, but they sense a spirit about our team that cares. Simple care that they don't see in so many parts of our culture.
Sure.
And certainly in America and probably worldwide, but I can certainly speak to our neck of the woods here. The bar in service has been set so low in morality and just in society in general. It has been set so low that if you just are a decent human being towards another person, you shine like a glittering jewel against a very dark background. So we may not be saying a whole lot for ourselves by mentioning those things because the bar has been set so low. But I think as followers of Christ that we have the opportunity just absolutely shine as this bright star of love and care, and in so many ways amongst the team, to our customers, of course. And it's just a phenomenal opportunity at this place and at this time, for such a time as this in the world in which we live.
Thank you so much. To talk maybe a little bit more about this kind of uniquely Christian approach to running a business, can we have just a little bit more of a description of what Salem, Illinois looks like and the unique culture that you're interacting with?
Okay, so I'll speak to a bit of our business being maybe uniquely Christian, if you want to put it in those terms, and how that framework helps us to run the business and informs our decision making. So number one, I would say, is the golden rule. That is really the foundation for why we have set the business up the way that we have. Everything from what it looks like from the curb before you ever pull onto the property, the experience of driving through the coffee shop, how we disciple and train our team, because all of those things create this experience. And the reason we are doing that is because that we love and care for our customers and for our team. I'll give you one way that we care for them and things that we make decisions on is how easy is it for our customers to do business with us. That seems very simple, and it may even seem like, well, that's not really uniquely Christian. And it may not be uniquely Christian, but it certainly is Christian, Christ-like, to think of others and want them to be able to interact with us as smoothly and as simply and as effortlessly as possible. And it turns out that Christ likeness and doing business that way can be quite the competitive advantage.
Sure.
Of course, it would be inappropriate to pursue Christ likeness for the sake of competitive advantage. But it does turn out that Christ likeness can be uniquely a competitive advantage. And then I would also say, as far as our business being our Christian, is our team. And I'm going to say something that might be a little bit controversial. And if you're a customer and you hear this, you might take exception to this. But I think as business owners and as Christians, we can identify with this, is that the conventional wisdom is that your customer is number one. Customer is always right, but our customers are not number one. Our number one is our team. And the reason for that is because who we are becoming as individuals is much more important than what we are doing. And that's a quote from Dallas Willard. But so we believe that as we disciple and train our team in the manner of Christ, as they become more like Christ, and again, we don't force this on anyone, but we certainly train this way and we disciple and coach this way. And as our team see that and take that upon themselves and then live that out amongst themselves behind that wall where now the customers don't see that, but amongst the team, there's tremendous good happening. Then organically from within each one of them overflows the love and the care in the way that they interact with their customers. And you cannot duplicate that. You cannot legislate that. There are no talking points that will create that result day in and day out during the stressful times and all of that. And then I'll just touch on also being salt and light. That's a big part. It's something that pushes us. So if you think about salt has to actually touch the food to do any good. And also salt has to remain salty to do any good. So using that kind of metaphor, we think of our team, Carma and I as leadership, our management team, and our baristas and everyone involved. We remain salty by discipling and becoming more Christ-like. And then we as the salt can touch the food, which is the world around us, and then be able to bring that sweetness and that flavor of Jesus to those around us. Just in the way that we do our day-to-day business, our normal stuff. Nothing that we do on a day-to-day basis is overtly Bible or Christian or like outwardly in your face. We're not saying the things. We're not thumping the Bible at people to coin a
You're not slipping Bible verses in your coffee.
That's right. But I think Carma said people will say, I don't know what it is about your place. There's just something different. I just love coming there. They'll say things like, I come there every day for my dose of positivity. And some people will actually realize what's going on, and they actually put it in terms of your Christ-like attitude, and we really appreciate what you're doing. But I think a lot of people don't actually connect the dots necessarily. And I think that's wonderful because I hope that someday they do connect the dots. But it's a great way to let them see the beauty of Christ. It's just us providing you a wonderful experience, a great cup of coffee, and they have had a touch point with Christ and they don't even know it. It can be anything from just for some reason they feel like that they can just talk to our baristas, just share, I really had a bad day, or this happened, or this was really great, or whatever. And I think that's part of that uniquely Christian approach to how we order and organize first the business and the team culture. And then the byproduct of that is what the customer experiences.
This is such a beautiful picture that we're getting of this very Christian approach to team building and to service, of course, in your local community. Do you have any favorite stories that you'd like to share about how you are engaging the community and building relationships over these past 3 years? We're almost recording on the 3rd year anniversary. I realize this will come out a little bit later, but I'm sure in 3 years there have probably been lots of great moments. Maybe you could share a couple of those with us.
There's actually been numerous instances where Dan or I have been involved in conversations with customers, and it's just like you mentioned earlier, beautiful to see the customer having the trust in our baristas that says, I can share my heartache with them. Several of our baristas have even just prayed with a customer right there at the window at the moment.
Oh, beautiful.
About something they're struggling with. And those are just like the highlights of, it doesn't get any better than that.
Right.
And we also have a prayer list on our freezer in the back of house. So when we have opportunity, people will share things with us and they want us to pray for them, and we'll add it to the list so that as we go throughout our day and we go around that back and we see those names, it reminds us to be aware of them, talking to God about them.
Mm-hmm.
One lady told me the other day, she said, I told my mom that you've been my psychologist lately because she lost her father, and, just basically listening and letting them talk and share. So that has kind of created an interesting outcome for us, because this has been part of our heart, is how can we get a place where we can have more time with these people? A couple things happened together. One was this summer, some of our team was wanting more hours, and we were like, well, let's see if we should maybe look into staying open later one day or something, stay late into the evening. And out of that came neighbor night. So on Thursdays, we stay open till 8 p.m. and Dan and some guys built some picnic tables, and we have umbrellas on them. And so that has been a very special time where people can come, get a dessert drink for the evening, and sit and visit with their friends. We can visit with them, get to know people on a little deeper level. And that's just been a real blessing. Mm-hmm. Another thing that has come about was last year, our Heaven to Earth drive-through nativity.
Oh.
So we actually set up props, live animals, people in costumes, and all the things of a live nativity, but right there in our drive-through. And we line up the cars and send them through with audio that they can listen to while they go through that tells the Christmas story.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
It was, how many cars did we have go through?
1,500 over the 3 nights. 1,500 people, something like that.
It was around 300 cars a night, I think.
Whoa.
LaRae and Matt were in charge of serving hot cocoa to everyone. We gave away free hot cocoa. And
Yeah.
Oh, that is so nice.
So it was another really neat community building time.
And for sure,
the people that we worked together with, the cast, were from different churches, and so that was a neat time too to build relationships in that way. So,
and coincidentally, LaRae's sister Rochelle and another guy in our church co-wrote our audio program that went with as you go through, and they log into our website. You start listening to the first station, it narrates, and as you drive through it. And so, there's music, and it was absolutely beautifully told the story of Jesus coming to earth and his desire to have relationship with us. And
that's so cool. It's so creative as well.
One little thing that's a little bit different, because at the very end, the last thing that you see before you get the hot chocolate from the Cherukaras was sort of looked like a Christmas gift wrap thing, but with a graphic on it, and it was John 3:16. And I just thought that was interesting, connecting that with the Christmas story. And I think, again, that's just another thing that people don't always connect the dots. They may have heard, they know, okay, Jesus came as a baby, and then they've heard John 3:16. But anyway, it was awesome.
It's just fun to see our team growing in their care for each other and caring about the mission of reaching out to our community. And it's neat to see how they've grown. A Bible study has come out of the team there at the coffee shop. Anyway, it's just fun to see the team, how they've grown over the last 3 years.
Just curious, how small is Salem? What's the population? And how many Christians are we talking about?
The sign as you come into Salem says 8,000 people.
Wow, okay.
Now, as far as Christians,
there's a church on every corner.
I mean, it's got to be a pretty high percentage that would identify as being Christian. Yeah,
right.
Pretty high percentage.
So most people have some sort of Christian identity, but in terms of where they are in faith, we don't really know, I guess.
Right, yeah. And then I'll just throw this in here as a statistic. So we do have a loyalty program at the coffee shops, and you can get rewards and shop the point shop. So we have our own app and everything you download from the App Store and all that. Well, so our town is 8,000 people, and our rewards membership is 12,400, something like that.
Amazing. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. Yeah. And of course, not all of them are active all the time. There's probably some that maybe are even inactive, but it's a lot larger number than the population of Salem. And so we're excited to see that, we do have a reach beyond just our immediate community.
Yes. And we need to make sure that they subscribe to our podcast.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Dan and Carma, you've mentioned the word mission several times in our conversation and discipleship a lot. And one other word that has a lot of currency in the Christian world, as you know, is calling. And I wonder, first of all, do you think of entrepreneurship, of running a small business like this, would you call it a calling? And if so, how would you encourage people to think about the missional aspects of maybe a career that doesn't automatically look missional in kind of traditional ways that we think of it? We might not immediately think of God calling us to run a coffee shop as just the first thing that jumps into our mind. But how would you advise listeners who are kind of weighing up potentially different options for careers and for how they spend their time in trying to serve God?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the way that I view this is that we as Christians are called to love one another. And that covers a lot of territory. Of course, would include entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, business ownership, is a unique opportunity to reach a lot of people and to touch a lot of people. And I said it earlier, I'll say it again, not in an overt, in your face, hey, I'll sell you this car, but hey, do you know Jesus? Have you accepted him as your personal savior? Not the salesman-y kind of thing there, but, out of love and care for our fellow man, entrepreneurship provides a product or service that people want and need. And that interaction, how that business transaction happens, is our calling to love one another. John said that by this, the world will know that you are his, that you show love one for another. And again, it's not how are we going to reach customers, as within the entrepreneurial framework. For us, it's more about what is our calling as it affects our team, our organization. And then the byproduct is you can love and care for your customers in a better way, more effectively, by cultivating that. But I think to not organize your business to influence others for the cause of Christ, even in the smallest way, when stewarding a platform such as business is just missing a tremendous opportunity to be God's hands and his feet doing kingdom work every day, just in the mundane. And then I also maybe say, as far as people may not give their money directly to kingdom work, but we can create something of value as entrepreneurs, as business owners. We can create something of value that they'll buy the goods and service that we create and then generate the funds and the opportunities, the platforms that can be then used for kingdom work.
Sure.
So I see it as shifting resources from, we'll say, worldly goods and worldly thing to kingdom work. Phillips Brooks was a great American pastor, and he said, the Christian finds the hand of Christ in everything, and by the faithful use of everything for Christ's sake, he takes firm hold of that hand of Christ and is drawn nearer and nearer to himself. That is the best method of promoting spiritual life. And I think this calling of entrepreneurship, it can be so easily thought of in ways of making money.
Sure.
And that is not the crux of what entrepreneurship is. And then I'll tack this on there. Another philosophy that we have is that business should not be an adversarial relationship that's in constant tension where we're trying to extract something out of our customers. They're trying to keep as much as they can and we're trying to get as much as we can. That tension, it really should be set up as a win-win and creates fertile ground to build long-term relationships that go beyond just the business transaction.
Redeeming culture.
That's beautiful perspective. Absolutely.
I think something that ties all these different things that you share together will be this desire to live faithfully with the choices we make in our career. Either it is a transition from having this job, it could be financially secure, it's a good job, but I want to be closer to my family, and I do that prayerfully, even though it comes with our uncertainties. And then, okay, now we are opening the coffee shop, but how do we do it in a Christ-like way, and instead of just thinking about how it benefits myself financially. So I think what you have kind of told us is this kind of wonderful testimony of how to live wisely, how to really kind of think about my identity as a Christian above all else. So thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Oh, sure. You're welcome.
So our final question for both of you, Dan and Carma, is whether you have any challenge or advice to our listeners who might be thinking of running a business or who are running a business right now and are employed in work not traditionally considered as missional.
Yeah, Christy, I think this framework that we've been discussing this whole time can easily be plugged into, if you're a plumber or you are doing podcasts or you are an engineer, or I think it's just possibly a change of thinking, the way you think about your job, your career, your business. And a big part of that is whatever you do in word or deed, do all to the glory of God. So we talked about that whole thing of loving others. All work requires human interaction. That just is a part of it. So how you conduct yourself reflects on Christ if you call yourself a follower of His. So whatever business or job, it can be missional. And if you are an owner, be intentional first and foremost about who you hire, because they are the face of your company. You want to hire first for cultural fit, and then find the right seat to put them in within your organization. Because you may find, someone that maybe doesn't have the exact skills that you're looking for that particular job, but they're a Christ-like person and they on with your mission. So try to find a place for them, because that's the most important part.
Thank you so much, guys. Dan and Carma, it's been such a privilege to have you on the podcast. Already in this season and the previous one, we have interviewed people from quite a few different parts of the world. It's been such a joy to interview you guys from my hometown. Listeners will have picked up on the fact that you're my aunt and uncle, so you've known me all my life, and I'm very grateful we've avoided any embarrassing family stories we've been on today. But thank you so much for sharing your vision for mission in a small town setting, in a small business setting, given us lots to chew on and think about, and I'm sure our listeners will have benefited from that as I have. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll look forward to being in your ears again next week. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning into the Overtones podcast today. Make sure to subscribe and tune in to the next episode on your streaming platform of choice.
Follow us and share our podcast with your friends on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on both platforms as Overtones Think Tank.
And if you'd like to get in touch with feedback, comments, or other ideas, our email address is podcast@overtonesproject.com. See you next week.